Hi guys! So today we're going to be talking about honeybees. I am so excited that it's May. Not because it's close to the end of the year, which that is a crazy exciting thing, but more we're kind of in that time of year where if we were in the regular classroom, standardized state testing would kind of be happening and coming to a close, and the lesson plan year that the district has is kind of starting to slowly wrap up. You guys have all this new information and a newfound knowledge and hopefully love for science. And what's really, really fun for me in May is that I get to share with you stuff that I think is really important, but it's not necessarily on your lesson plan. It's fun stuff I've saved up so that we can talk about at the end of the year. And today's lesson is one of those lessons. You guys know that Miss Bender loves her honeybees. So today we're going to be talking about the little creatures that make this honey. So we're going to be talking about honeybees. They are so important because they are pollinators. They help us get food and they need our help because they're starting to dwindle and we kind of need to plant flowers and stuff and help them out, help these little honey guys out. But I'm not really going to worry about that aspect today. I just want to educate you on what a honeybee actually is, because a lot of my students are actually scared of honeybees and any type of bee really. And I understand wasps, and they're aggressive. They're an aggressive insect, so they'll come after you. But honeybees aren't really like that, and bumblebees aren't really like that. They don't really care about you, to be honest. They have a job in this world and they want to do it. So today I'm focusing on bees, specifically honeybees. So honeybees are actually considered social insects. That means they live together. They live in colonies or swarms, you may hear, and they're run by what's called a caste system. And a caste system means there's a queen and everybody has a job to do. So there is one queen, and we'll talk about her in a minute, but then there are also drones and worker bees. And again, we'll talk about them in just a moment. But I want you guys to know that there's only 7 known species of bees in the whole entire world. But then they're broken down into subsections, and that's 44 of them. So there's really not a crazy amount of bees, because some other species have over 100 subsections of things. So it's kind of crazy to think there's only 44 subspecies of bees in the whole entire world, at least that we know of now, right? And some of these guys sting and some of them don't. Some of them bite, but honeybees are more worried about their colony. That's their job, protecting their colony and making sure their colony gets what they want. So I have a very similar Barbie to this in my classroom. And in every single class I've had this year, because she sits up next to the hive, remember, I've had at least one or multiple students go, Miss B, why is there a hive and a Barbie up there on your shelf? Well, this is why. It's to help me teach you guys about honeybees. So honeybees used to actually be wild, and you can still find them in the wild, but they've adapted really well to what's called domestication. And domestication is where people take an animal and keep it. So dogs have become domestic because now we keep them and they live with us in our house. Honeybees have also become domestic because people have taken colonies and they've put them in what's called hives. And this is an example of a bee box and how that they, are my little bees out? Yep. How they've learned to go, instead of building their own colony, to live inside this bee box. And that is where they will store their honey, have their children. The drones and the queen will live, because the drones and the queen never leave the nest, along with some workers. There's only certain ones that actually leave the nest. And people have learned, like Barbie here, how to protect themselves and go and collect that honey. And here's my tiny honey bear. They've learned how to collect that honey. So Barbie, she's a fashionista, so she doesn't really wear stuff the right way. We all know that. But she does have on her protective gear. So if you had a beehive, you couldn't just go up to the hive and start collecting honey. That's not the way it works. They'll come out and they'll sting you because they're protecting their queen. So you have to wear a bee suit. It has a helmet, and generally it has a mask that goes over it, a netting that you can see through, but Barbie, again, she doesn't want to wear that. And then it has a full bodysuit. You can do just a jacket like Barbie, but they recommend you doing the whole thing. And then what a person will do is they'll do something called smoking the bees, where they get smoke and they pour it in there. It doesn't hurt the bees. It kind of makes them go to sleep so they can pull the stuff out and pull the honey out. Now, Barbie's bee box doesn't actually work in the sense that I can pull the actual example honey out, but you should be able to remove a part of the bee box. And the drones and the worker bees, they're kind of lazy at this point because of the smoking. So they're either slowly moving or they're sleeping. They're okay though. And you're able to scrape off the honey and the beeswax. So that's Barbie and her current career. But in the wild, bees like to live in gardens and woodlands and orchards and anything that has a whole lot of flowers. Like their cousins, the wasps and ants, honeybees have what's called a membranous wings. They're not hard. They're kind of see-through and really easy to break, to be honest. And they have an exoskeleton. What an exoskeleton is they're hard on the outside and squishy on the inside. We're kind of already squishy on the outside and our hard parts on the inside. That's called an endoskeleton. So their skeletal system that holds them up is on the outside, whereas ours is on the inside. And my old art teacher back from when I was in elementary school used to sing this really crazy song that I'm going to sing to you that helps you remember how a bee anatomy works. Okay, so here we go. You've got your head, your thorax, and your abdomen. You've got your head, your thorax, and your abdomen. You got big bug eyes and antenna. You got big bug eyes and antenna, because you have your 3 sections: head, thorax, and your abdomen, with 6 wiggly legs and wings that fly. With 6 wiggly legs and wings that fly. And notice how my wiggly legs and my wings all came out of my thorax, because that's where they're connected actually on a bee. And I know that was a really funny song, but Miss Bender passed biology thanks to that song and her insect knowledge. So I thought you guys would like that too. So a bee's antenna actually helps them smell. So their nose isn't like our nose. So they actually smell from their antenna and receptors in their legs, which is kind of cool. And they can fly over 3 miles to find honey. And when they finally find that honey, they come back to the hive and they want to tell their friends that they found that hive, or that honey spot, the nectar. Now, the way a bee gets nectar is they actually stick their tongue out, which is covered in hairs, and slurp it up through a tube. And then they store it, and this is kind of going to be a little gross, but they store it in what's called their honey stomach, because when they get back to the hive, they kind of regurgitate it, and that's what helps make honey. But they do store it in their honey stomach, and I have an example when they get back to the hive to tell their friends where to go. It's called the waggle dance, and it's really super cute. Hold on. So she completely steps on top of everybody else to be able to show them that she knows what she's talking about. Because the only ones that leave the hives are the worker bees, and they're all female.
It's called the waggle dance. This returning bee has just found a new source of nectar and is going to tell others in the hive about it. First, she gathers an audience. To do that, she climbs on her sisters' backs and vibrates her abdomen. Now that she's got their attention, she begins her dance using a code of movements that tell her fellow workers where her discovery lies. The duration of her waggle indicates the distance to the nectar source. The longer the waggle, the further the flower. And the angle at which she dances across the cone tells them the direction to the flower in relation to the sun. Her instructions are remarkably accurate and can pinpoint the location of a nectar source over 6 kilometers away. Some of her fellow workers set off immediately to find it.
Okay, so we're gonna stop that right there. And that's the waggle dance. I didn't know how else to show you than to find an example of a bee doing it. So we're gonna talk about the life cycle of a bee. It goes from an egg to a larva to a pupa. Now remember, a pupa looks similar to the adult, excuse me guys, but is missing some features, and then it's an adult. And as it grows, it's going to be categorized into one of 3 categories in the hive. It could be a worker bee, and a worker is a female that performs a lot of the social functions like building, protecting, and cleaning the hive, taking care of the larvae, which are their babies, and taking care of the colony, which can have 50 to 60,000 worker bees. The little tiny larva could grow up to be a drone. A drone is a male bee, and his whole existence is to make the queen bee happy. That's it. And the kind of sad part is when winter comes, these guys only live to 3 to 4 months, because when winter finally comes, the worker bees kick them out. And then there's one queen bee. She runs the whole thing, and she just has babies to make sure she's keeping the colony alive and healthy, and she can live up to 5 years. However, if a queen bee dies, those worker bees will pick a new larva and feed her something called the queen's jelly, royal jelly. And that's all that baby will eat until it becomes a queen herself. Now, which is kind of cool. Everybody else eats what's called honey bread, and they take a little bit of honey and put it on pollen, and that's what bees eat. And I thought that was kind of funny because it's called honey bread. Now, if we were in the regular classroom, I had several activities where you guys would get to test out your senses, test out if you were a worker bee, and how a worker bee functions, to try to find a flower, and things like that. But unfortunately, we can't do my hands-on games. So I did come up with this for you guys, that if you would like to do it at home. So this is an example of a store-bought bee. It's called a bee hotel. Now, it doesn't normally house honeybees unless it's raining and they need to get out of the rain, but it is a little home for native Florida bees to live in, and these guys don't sting, and they actually pollinate more than honeybees, and they're not social bees, which means they like to live by themselves. Notice how the hotel rooms are all alone, because they like to live alone. They're antisocial. So I do have a thing that we can make those today. You can make it out of an old cup. I happen to have a McDonald's cup. You can make it out of Pop-Tart container. You can make it out of a tin can. If you have one of those, I did not happen to have one of those. And what you do is you make sure there is an opening on one side. So I'm going to tape back my Pop-Tart container here. And make sure the other side is closed. The reason why is when these little guys go into the hole to sleep for the night, they will back in, and that way they can see what's coming at them. It also helps prevent the wind from rushing through it and making them too cold. Because even though bees are really, really good at adapting to environments, and they're pretty much everywhere, especially due to people having hives, unless it's super, super frigid. So you don't want them to get too cold at night. A cup is great because it already has the back. A can is great because it already has the back. Now you have two options. You can just fill it, just like my guy here, with straws. Use paper straws. Do not use plastic straws because the little bees can't get a grip on the plastic straws very well. So it kind of becomes useless and you just have this thing in your yard that isn't doing the purpose that you built it for. But you can find paper straws. I found these at Dollar Tree. So it's not that big of a deal. And I used to have a whole pack, but my kids used them and now I'm down to this one. So there's that. And you can also use toilet paper rolls. So if you have a round container already, like a can or a cup, you can just go ahead and stack your straws in there, cutting off any excess that you have so that it's flush with the front. If you have something that's square or something that you want to make a design out of, you can take a toilet paper roll and stick it right on the front and then stick your straws in, filling it up completely so that it looks like this. Again, I would have done more, except for we're still not going out right yet. And my kids used all my straws for this activity. So there's that. But that way it's nice and full, just like the store-bought one I have. And hopefully you'll have a little bee come and join you. Like I said, the non-social bees generally don't sting because they generally don't care about anything. And honeybees generally don't sting unless they're protecting themselves or their colony, because honeybees are one of the few bees that if they sting you, they don't survive that. So they try to use that as a very last resort. So I hope you guys enjoyed this honeybee lesson. Head on over and take the quiz, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.